Welcome to the Agronomy and Farm Management Podcast. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Elizabeth. Thanks for joining us today.
So we're back with our fourth installment of our farmer interviews. Today we have Brian Case joining us from Southwest Champaign County. So Brian, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your farm?
My name is Brian Case. I live here in Champaign County, Southwest Champaign County, just south of St. Paris, I guess. Cover approximately 900 acres. It's 100% no-till, corn and soybean, dabbling a little bit with some malting barley, and then I've also begun to incorporate cover crops into the operation. It's just me. I'm a one-owner operation with me. My two sons help me, and then I also have another equipment sharing arrangement with some neighbors in the fall for harvest.
Wow, that's pretty diverse. Excited to learn how you balance all of that. One thing that I learned about you is that you're a first-generation farmer, which that's pretty unique. Could you tell us a little bit about how you got started farming?
Yes. Growing up, both of my parents were school teachers, and my grandfather on my mother's side had a small vegetable operation there west of Toledo. So when I was younger, probably grade school age, I would go up in the summer and spend time with him. But of course, he got out of that long before I was big enough to do much. So I spent a lot of time riding with neighbors, anybody that would let me ride, asking a lot of questions, just kind of piqued my interest in it. Then was probably 14 or 15. I started working for Dean and Charlie Kite here, just baling hay and picking up rocks, and that just progressed. I worked for them all through high school, and even when I was home some from college, I would still help there some. Of course, I went to Purdue. Once I graduated from there, and I took a lot of agronomy classes. I studied farm management, but really took a heavy load of agronomy also, just trying to learn, knowing I wanted to be in agriculture somewhere. I was working as an agronomist on a large vegetable and seed operation in southwest Indiana when Dean got a hold of me and said he had an opportunity to expand, along with that adding a Pioneer seed dealership, and wanted to know if I'd be interested in coming back home and farming. So of course I did. Just made my day when he called, and so we did that. We formed a partnership, an operating agreement, and we operated that until 2006, I believe, when he started to retire. And then I bought out the rest of the machinery that he didn't own, and some of the land, and started on my own. So, and that's currently where I'm at today.
Well, that's a pretty unique way. As Elizabeth said, we don't hear about too many first-generation farmers these days, and I guess I'm outnumbered with Purdue graduates here on the call because there's a graduate from Purdue also.
Yeah, you didn't tell me there was a fellow Boilermaker out there today.
Yeah, so that's a unique opportunity, I think, and inspiration to those out there interested in farming. My husband and I, neither of us had parents that were involved in agriculture, and now we both are. Of course, he manages the Farm Science Review, so we don't farm on our own, but I kind of get where you're coming from, where you get a bug for it, and I think that's how all of us in agriculture feel. Tell us a little bit, you mentioned your boys help you on the farm. Are they interested in continuing and making it a second generation operation?
I think so. Matthew is my oldest one. He'll be turning 19 here in another week. But of course he graduates from high school here, and but he's going to be attending ATI and studying agronomy, and I think his eventual plans are to transfer down to main campus then. And I believe it's down there. It's agronomy and sustainable plant systems or something like that. I think is what ends up the bachelor's degree is. So yeah, he's got a strong interest in it. Really enjoys it. So yeah, there may be an opportunity someday. My other son Brent, who is 16, he's beginning to get an interest in it. Has spent a lot of time with me here lately, and has worked with be my father-in-law, Dale Sloan, who had Sloan Ag Consulting. He's helped Dale pull some soil sampling and do some things like that. So yeah, they are both interested. if the opportunity is there, whether we're large enough to sustain 2 families or not, that is, yet to be seen.
Yeah, that's kind of the key, I think. And a lot of this is if you're able to expand, but there's a lot of competition, especially in Champaign County for land and continuing those farms onto the next generation. What steps have you guys made in your, transition or succession plan to have that opportunity available for them if they want to do it?
Our farm is set up as an LLC, and so with my wife and I each owning 50% of the shares in that. So if one of them would like to join, as I begin to slow down or retire, they could either purchase or could gift them shares in the LLC to bring their membership in. So as a transition for the operating assets, and then of course our land we own is held in a separate trust, and which they are the eventual beneficiaries of that. Anyways.
Yeah, and talking with you a little bit about this before, you said that you really think that they should have some training beyond high school or working off the farm, and that's something we don't see as often, but especially, and I think some other countries, is really key, where they the next generation goes and works on another farm. And we hear that, go make your mistakes under someone else's watch, right? And learn some things and bring that back to the farm.
I think that's vitally important to, one, gain some skills and, have kind of gives you a plan B. If you work for somebody else, you've got a different set of skill set there. But just some different experience getting away from working for Dad. I'm not as critical on him probably as another employee would be. So to do that, and plus to learn, to do things differently. It's one of the things, when I came back, we began to do things differently than what Dean and Charlie had always done. Had some different ideas and seen some different things, so you don't always fall into that trap. Well, I got to do it Dad's way because that's the only way I know. And and I just will probably have a little more respect to get out of that. They've got some management skills and things like that coming, from the outside back in. So I just think that leads to a smoother transition. With my seed business and some of my other contacts, I've seen a lot of operations where, the son graduates from high school or college and just comes right back and nothing ever changes. Dad's still in charge. You read about it all the time until he's 65 or 70 years old, and the son or the next generation never has a chance to grow on their own or blossom, and it creates a lot of headaches and a lot of tension in there. So I think it would be very helpful for them to, to work somewhere else and gain some different experience and some different knowledges to bring back.
Yeah, and I think with you being the first generation, you have a unique opportunity to actually retire, maybe if you're interested, at a decent retirement age, and allow them to take over management. A lot of times that is so delayed in farming because, of course, we want to keep farming as long as we can, but that makes it really hard, like you said, for the next generation to really implement any changes or try some new things on the farm.
Yeah. So one of the things you talked about earlier was your equipment sharing. So apparently your outlook on farm transition isn't the only unique approach that you're taking. So could you share a little bit more about how your equipment sharing process works and how you guys came to that idea?
Yeah. I'm a little bit unique because I haven't always had to do things the way Dad did them. So I can, look at things coming from a different side of the industry and do some kind of what are some people consider some out of the box things in terms of that. So was looking at, with 3 of us, the other 2 guys, it's Matt Yoder and Jack Summers. We're all involved together in another group called Champaign Premium Grain Growers, where there's a pool of about 40 different farmers that were organized where we purchase inputs and things like that together. So we were all members of that and knew each other and were friends, and we're all kind of had realized that we're all in the same boat. We all were single person operators that had expanded a little bit. Equipment was older, so we were all kind of talking about replacing combines, and we needed labor and things like that. And we decided that it didn't make much sense for all three of us to go out and, you know, make $500,000 or $750,000 investments in equipment when we could probably pool our resources and do it together. So that's kind of how the conversation originally started out, and it has worked well. We started out, we've done anywhere, we've leased combines, we did that for a while, and where we would lease the combines, we own the heads, and then each member would either contribute the tractor or the grain cart or semis and labor. The whole key to that's been is we all get along well enough. We've been doing it for 13 or 14 years that we agreed from the outset, you have to do this as it's one. We cover about 3,000 acres. We have one 3,000 acre farm to harvest in the fall. You know, it can't be Matt Yoder and Brian Case and Jack Summers. It's wherever it's fit to go. That's where we go. If it makes sense to move, you know, then we'll move. But we look at it all at the mindset of one big farm to harvest, and that's really helped.
Yeah, that definitely takes, I think, an unselfish group of people to do that. I mean, you guys are close, but you're in some different areas across the county too, so that helps you to be able to move around. But having the best interest and trying to look at it as a whole is, I'm sure, really key to making that work, rather than, you know, my crop is more important than someone else's.
Yeah, I mean, it took us about, I'm going to say 2 or 3 years to get going on it. We worked on it for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years before we did it. You know, Barry Ward helped us out. Howard Doster, you know, when he was still at Purdue, it helped us. We have very detailed and ownership agreements in terms of how costs are split out. I mean, it's pretty cut and dry in how that's done. We've also, you know, and who's responsible for doing what. You know, we have details if somebody wants to exit. It's very detailed on how that process happens. So everything is there. We, you know, won't say that we haven't had disagreements along the line, but I mean, we've even got a section in there that deals with that if we have to. But we've always been able to, between the three of us, just, you know, we put it up for a vote, and once the decision's decided, you know, that's what we're doing, and everybody puts their best foot forward then, and away we go. So, I mean, it takes unique individuals to do that. I think, you know, the three of us kind of think outside the box sometimes, and, you know, I think that's what it takes. And it's, you know, the guys have said if you were friends after 3 or 4 years, why, that would be a great accomplishment. And I think now we all kind of look forward to harvest because we enjoy working with each other, and you know, by the end of it, we're ready for a break.
So what would you say are kind of the top, I don't know, 2 or 3 major benefits to going that route as opposed to purchasing your own equipment?
One, you know, just the initial capital investment. You don't have that machine sitting out in the barn you use it for 3 months out of the year, and then it just sits there for the rest of it. So that has worked out well. The labor factor, you know, trying to find extra labor, you know, has been difficult in the harvest. And so us being able to do that together has allowed us to be very cost economical. We know what our harvest costs are. I think guys would be surprised at what their harvest costs are. So as far as planning and budgeting, that's been a real benefit to know what our costs are. And they're a lot greater than what people think they are, because, you know, we charge, because we're each contributing different amounts and need reimbursed. I mean, we have a cost for everything, you know, for labor, support machinery, you know, things like that all gets charged off. So once you start figuring in that tractor to run the grain cart that you might not normally charge for because, well, I use it in the spring, it's just sitting there in the fall. Well, it costs something to own that and run that. So yeah, and, you know, being that we're very efficient in terms of our cost per acre and what we've seen. So I think the labor savings, the efficiency, and just freeing up the extra capital has, you know, been real benefits that have allowed us to really operate. You know, we can afford the newer technology where we wouldn't if we were operating as 3 smaller operations trying to own our own equipment. You know, we'd all be in older machines and not have access to the latest technology and newer machines. So that's been a real key benefit.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think, you know, you talked about how everything is in writing, and clearly you guys spent a lot of time planning out how this is going to work, that's probably, aside from your personalities, the next greatest reason that you're successful is just nothing was left unplanned.
Yeah, we uncovered a lot, uncovered a lot of stones, doing that. And we're unique in how we do it. It's not everything. Some things are charged as a percentage of ownership. Some things are charged by the number of bushels that get through. If one guy has a bad crop and another guy has a really good crop, their charges, are going to be different. So we thought a lot of those scenarios through. So it's pretty detailed. Has worked well.
I appreciate you sharing that, because I think, like you mentioned, the benefits there, and there's farmers out there who could potentially think about something like that for their area and help increase their farm profitability too.
Well, as I say, we've always tailored this around, sometime we've had, 3-year lease agreements or purchase agreements or something like that with the combine. So we tailor our operating and membership agreements to that. And at the end of those times, we sit around and say, well, is anybody ready to do anything different? And we've all said no. Nobody is, it's worked well enough that, nobody is really saying, it's time to get out.
That's great. Mention malting barley. You've gotten into that recently. So how's that been going as far as being able to make it through the winter? Do you see it as something that you're going to continue to keep in your rotation?
Well, I tell everybody I'm the poster child for what not to do with it. I personally have not had very good success with it, but most of that has been some of my own faults into some late planting, and some along with the late planting, I've come from the year before in the soybeans, we were so late, the herbicides were sprayed late. So the first year I had some herbicide carryover issues. Last year was some late planting. So we had a lot of winter kill in it. Unfortunately, mine didn't survive. I didn't have any to harvest here this past summer. And then with the way things, we didn't get beans planted till, middle of June this year. They didn't come off till the end of October. So I thought it was too late to plant it. That's the one thing I've been watching. It's not as forgiving as wheat in terms of planting date. It really needs to be in the ground by mid-October. And so I didn't get any planted, but what I've seen it around, some other guys that have had success, yes, it's something I want to keep in the rotation in terms of bringing some small grains back into the rotation, in terms of what I'm trying to do with some cover crops and things like that. Would, just for soil health wise, if I can get some small grains back into the rotation, and I think that's probably an economical way to do it, if they can still keep the malting end of it, in business that way, if there's a demand for it. It allows it comes off 2 to 3 weeks earlier than wheat, so there's an opportunity to double crop some beans, and so your income, your gross income per acre can be fairly good.
Yeah, I definitely think the economics are there as long as we can continue to have variety improvement and ensure that we make malting quality. And you mentioned soil health, and you've been doing some stuff with cover crops as well. How long have you been involved with cover crops?
I've been messing with cover crops for probably 5 or 6 years now. Just kind of on a simple deal with using some cereal rye and some manual rye. Been working well. Been venturing in the last 2 or 3 years, planting more of it green. Really starting to see some benefits out of that. In terms of being able to move water drainage through the soil profile has really, as that soil structure has improved, the water holding capacity has come right along with it. Been able to do some things in the field, and some fields that, a day or two earlier that I haven't been before, are kind of lighter clay soils. We used to have it when we were doing tillage, had a terrible problem with crusting. That's not a concern anymore. We're a no-tone and got the cover crops. So really seeing some good benefits out of that. Looking now into expand into maybe some different mixes and different timings of planting on that. So it's really, really excited about what I can go forward with that.
Well, Brian, thank you so much. This has been a really interesting interview. You've got a lot of unique things going on, so we appreciate you taking time out of your day to talk with us and share with farmers across Ohio.
Oh, no problem. Like I said, I'm in a unique situation, and like to see, people like me, first generation people that have an interest. It doesn't come along very often. And if I can help somebody else, get started or spur some ideas along, be more than willing to. Feel free to contact me anytime. If you guys have more questions, or anybody else has any questions or wants to sit down with some more detailed information, I'd be willing. I'm very blessed and very fortunate to be in the situation I am, and would sure like the ability to pass it on or, help others out.
Thanks for listening to the Agronomy and Farm Management Podcast. Join us again in 2 weeks for our next episode.